All right. Hi, everybody. Members of the 5472. It's Bill and Lorraine coming back at you with an update on negotiations. Our latest negotiations was last Friday. Once again, the reconciliation officer was present. And this was more of an opportunity to have the employer respond to everything that we said in that initial negotiate or the bargaining, the session beforehand. And so a lot of really concerning stuff was said by the employer that are things that, again, it's coming from them. It's not coming from us, changing things up, stuff that we weren't looking to plan. I mean, there were a lot of proposals that tried to keep things the way they are, which is how people wanted them. But for whatever odd reason, and you can jump to your own conclusions or assumptions on why the employer is all of a sudden looking to change things that nobody was really looking to change. And it doesn't really feel like those changes are being made for the better. In terms of the units, there's been arguments over the hours of work, what policy says, which is 44 hours. If you look at the schedule, taking into account supervisions, SMG training, all of those things, we have it coming out to about 37 and a half, 38 hours. The employer came back and somehow managed to find another 2.5 hours of work. And so it looks like they're open to having a 40-hour work week for the units, which, again, based on our numbers, is a little bit more than what's already being worked. But I think the biggest thing, and I was too dumbfounded to respond, but fortunately not dumbfounded enough not to write down the direct quote. But Jason, in speaking to the group, had made mention that new members have spoken to him. And the quote was, so new staff had spoken and who have concerns over the environment that senior staff have created. That's speaking specifically to the units. In hindsight, I'm kicking myself, and I should have asked him how he followed up when new staff expressed those concerns. And, as somebody who's supposed to be a leader in the agency, was he providing any kind of context as to why the current morale levels are why they are on the units, right? I mean, that was pretty concerning. I thought, I felt rather offended, and I don't even work on the units. We all kind of have an idea of what it is that's going on, really feeling under-supported, understaffed, and undertrained. And that's not falling on the shoulders of the senior staff, right? Specific client, I'd say that falls more so on the ministry than anybody else, maybe not even as much the agency, but that was something that really stuck out to me. And I think it's important that everybody sort of know that somebody in a senior position seems to be laying the blame on the senior staff rather than, holding everybody accountable, right? There's not much of a team environment if management's sort of quick to throw people under the bus in that regards. Other things that it came up specifically as it relates to the units and to, I'd say all the houses, including reentry, is they've talked about grandfathering out the charge position and the house head position. It was mentioned that the ministry only needs somebody to take the lead on a shift. And so I guess in the employer's opinion, they don't really feel a need to have a charge position or a house head. And again, I believe that also relates to the cabins up at reentry, and that ultimately they're proposing that, whoever that designated person is per shift will get a shift premium. So they'll make a little bit more money. But in terms of having separate pay scale or anything like that, they didn't speak to any of it. I guess that they're hoping to save some money in that regard. And they feel, at least on the units, that they're going to hire more managers to take over the managerial responsibilities that charge people had. Now, from the get-go, we've always argued that the charge people didn't really have any managerial responsibilities. And so there's still quite a bit of conflict there. There's also created quite a storm because at the beginning of this whole process, we negotiated to have the charge people as part of the collective agreement or part of the bargaining group. And for the employer to then turn around or sort of agree to that in negotiations and then turn around and say, well, we're going to get rid of the position. It's not really negotiating in good faith. So that created a little bit of a storm. And I know that we had our concerns. We expressed our concerns to the conciliation officer who's going to follow up with the employer. So we'll see come next negotiations what potentially changes in that regard. Then the last one, our lovely members up there at reentry, who since the get-go Some have not been overly talkative with us to find out, let us know what they want and what they don't want. But there's always been two consistent messages for the members up at Reentry, things that they wanted. It was that Camp Road, which we're still looking to try and figure out and have that looked at to save your car some wear and tear. And the other was that schedule, that nobody wanted that schedule touched. Well, we've been talking about hours of work. I already spoke about the units. Policies and procedures say the live-in treatments, more so the city houses, work 44 hours, and we're trying to negotiate that down. And so it looked like the employer was willing to agree to 40 hours a work week for the houses in the city, which were great. But then the bomb dropped that they were also looking to have a 40-hour work week up at Reentry. So we kind of jumped all over that and said, well, wait a minute, we've not looked to propose any changes to the Reentry schedule. The members up there have been very clear, we don't want any changes to that schedule. To which Claudette spoke up and said, well, Reentry is considered live-in treatment. And so if it's going to be a 40-hour work week for the houses in the city, then it should be a 40-hour work week up there at Reentry. Paraphrasing that last little part. But ultimately, I kind of shake my head is that the schedule in the houses in the city and up at Reentry are already different. So why all of a sudden do they need to be identical in terms of the hours of work per week? We had it made quite clearly early on while we were doing those staff surveys that, if that schedule changed, there'd be a lot of people looking for new work because they wouldn't be able to maintain their job there. And they have other stuff going on their days off, whether it's other employment. Schedule worked best for you guys, and we're still going to try and fight to keep that schedule for you. But we thought it was pretty important that, the employer, for whatever reason, is looking to negotiate something different. And, I try not to bang my head on a hard surface, but it's almost, for lack of a better terms, is like, are they intentionally trying to push buttons to make people upset in the bargaining group? It doesn't make any sense to any of us. And so again, we gotta bring you guys up to speed on that. In terms of reconciliation, I mean, there was some feedback that we got from the reconciliation officer. So Diane said, there's probably some things that you could probably show a little bit more flexibility on, which, I mean, we'll talk as a group. We have an idea of meeting before August, just to talk as a group to see, okay, are we going to show some flexibility in some of these smaller areas? And of course, I'm going to assume, hopefully safely, that the conciliation officer has also spoken to the employer and said, like, look, some of these proposals are more than reasonable, and maybe you guys need to show some flexibility too. And so again, we'll talk about it as a group and hopefully make some decisions that will move this whole process forward a little bit quicker. I think that's sort of the feedback that we have to kind of give. Lorraine, you can add your 2 cents or, kind of update people on what's coming up next.
So with all this going on, we do realize we need to have a membership meeting fairly soon. We'll try for either the end of this month or the beginning of next month. Just because we need to fill some positions. And we also would like to fill some spots on the bargaining committee so that we have other voices, not just ours. So I would ask the people in the residences, the people up at Reentry, please think about it. Think about getting more involved. We would love to have your feedback on these things as well. So if you think either you could join for the bargaining sessions or on the executive, please let us know. I either reach out to Bill or to myself, email or text. I'm sure most of you have at least one of our phone numbers at this point, and you all have Bill's email address. But the same applies to the RNs. If there's an RN around that would like to get on to the bargaining committee, please let us know. We would welcome that very much. So keep an eye out. We'll let you know when the meeting is going to happen. Okay.
Yeah. Small reminder, we still don't have everybody's email in the membership group. It's definitely increased since the petition went around and people signed. So again, thank you for that. So, I mean, feel free to connect with coworkers, ask them if they've been getting these emailed updates. And if not, encourage them to reach out either to myself or to Lorraine. And you can give them my phone number. I don't have a problem with that, or the email address, so we can connect and bring them kind of into the fold. And I'll also extend that invitation, not just for the houses in the city, but up at Reentry. That goes for any of the social workers, whether working on the units or in SIFT, any of the administrative staff who watch this, right? You guys are all part of the local as well, and are welcome to attend. You know, in the email on which this video is being sent out, I mean, there'll be some added little information on about what it means to be part of the negotiating committee. And again, just reach out, even if you have questions. We'll gladly answer them as quickly as we can. Okay. So that's it for the update. I hope everybody is well. I know it's frustrating to hear some of these things, and we're frustrated too. The next round of negotiations isn't starting until August. I think it's August 3rd, 5th, and 8th. So there'll be some back-to-back sessions up there. Hopefully some of you will be able to join us in those negotiations. And of course, we'll have updates shortly after that on what's been going on, okay? So again, be well. If anything's going on in your workplace that, you know, have questions, concerns, or maybe just want to bounce ideas off us, or just keeping us in the loop, you have our email address. And again, we'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.